When you ask most people, "Who are you?" they usually answer with what they do. "I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm an entrepreneur." But that's not who you are, that's what you do. Who you are is what remains when the titles, the makeup, the roles, and the expectations are stripped away. The real woman begins to appear only when the noise of the world quiets down. Yet the truth is, very few women today ever get to meet that version of themselves, because from the moment they are born, someone is already telling them who they should be. Parents, culture, social media, they all begin to paint your portrait long before you've even held the brush. They tell you what beauty should look like, what behavior is acceptable, what success should mean. And so you start to perform instead of live. You start becoming the version of yourself that pleases others because acceptance feels safer than authenticity. But here's the paradox: the more you live to please, the emptier you become. Because every time you say yes to others just to be liked, you say no to yourself. A real woman understands that identity is not given, it's built. She doesn't allow society to define her value because she knows definitions are traps. They limit you. They shrink your possibilities into something predictable, something ordinary. She knows that every time she chooses herself, her values, her boundaries, her truth, she's shaping her identity from within. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. You see, the world loves women who follow, not women who think. The world feels safe when women are quiet, agreeable, and compliant. But when a woman truly knows herself, when she walks into a room with the calm confidence of self-awareness, people feel something different. They can sense that she cannot be manipulated, and that's powerful. Because when you know who you are, no one can use confusion to control you. Being a real woman means you take responsibility for knowing yourself before anyone else defines you. It means you spend time understanding your fears, your desires, your limits. It means you stop asking, "What should I do to fit in?" and start asking, "What feels true to me?" That shift from performing to being changes everything. Suddenly, you no longer chase validation, you choose alignment. You no longer crave attention, you create value. You no longer depend on approval, you develop clarity. And let's be honest, this isn't easy. It takes courage to walk your own path when the world expects you to follow theirs. You will be misunderstood, sometimes even by the people you love, but that's the price of authenticity. Every strong woman you admire has paid it, because the truth is, you can't be real and be universally accepted at the same time. You have to choose the comfort of approval or the freedom of authenticity. There's a certain peace that comes when you stop trying to be everything for everyone. You stop competing, comparing, explaining. You begin to move with quiet confidence. You start making decisions that reflect your own values instead of society's script. That's when you realize your worth isn't something you earn, it's something you already possess. So, if you want to be a real woman, begin with the simplest but hardest question. Who am I when no one is watching? Because the answer to that question is your truth, your strength, and your power. Everything else, beauty, success, relationships, will align with that truth once you live from it. And remember this, the world doesn't need more perfect women, it needs more real ones, because the moment you know who you are, the world has no choice but to respect you. People often mistake strength for something loud, for aggression, dominance, or the ability to fight back. But real strength doesn't need to shout. It doesn't demand recognition. True strength, the kind that lasts, is quiet. It's consistent. It's the kind that stays when applause fades and no one is watching. A real woman doesn't prove her power through noise. She reveals it through endurance. We live in a world that glorifies instant reaction: speak fast, move fast, win fast. But genuine power isn't built in speed, it's built in stillness. Think about it. Storms make noise, but it's the calm ocean beneath that carries the depth. Strength isn't found in how loud you are when life goes your way, but in how composed you remain when it doesn't. A real woman doesn't panic when things fall apart. She pauses, she breathes, and then she rebuilds. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is emotion, response is wisdom, and the difference between the two is maturity. When you reach a point where you can face chaos without losing your center, that's when you've mastered strength. Anyone can be fierce when they're in control, but very few can stay calm when they're not. Consistency is the purest form of power. It means showing up even when you're tired, choosing discipline over mood, and doing what's right even when it's not easy. The world celebrates outcomes, but strength is built in the process, in the early mornings, the silent efforts, the quiet sacrifices. A real woman doesn't seek sympathy for her struggles. She transforms those struggles into stories of resilience. And yes, she breaks down sometimes, she cries, she questions everything, but she doesn't stay there. That's the beauty of her strength. She allows herself to feel without losing her direction. People often think strong women don't feel pain, but that's not true. They just don't let pain define them. They learn from it, they grow through it, and they keep moving. That's the difference between strength and resistance. One bends and adapts, the other cracks under pressure. Real strength isn't about being unbreakable, it's about being unshakable. You bend, but you don't fall apart. You adjust, but you don't lose your essence. You evolve, but you never abandon your values. That's the kind of power that lasts because it's built on understanding, not ego. When a woman is truly strong, she doesn't need to announce it. Her energy speaks for her. You can sense it in her presence, in her tone, in the way she carries herself. There's a calm authority in her silence that says, "I've been through storms, but I still stand." That calmness is not weakness, it's mastery. It's what happens when you've faced life's chaos enough times to realize that reacting doesn't change the outcome, but clarity does. Strength also means forgiveness, not because the other person deserves it, but because you do. Carrying anger is heavy, letting go is powerful. Real women don't waste their strength proving points or seeking revenge. They invest it in building peace, growth, and purpose. If you look at the most grounded people in life, they are rarely the loudest. They are the ones who have learned how to channel their energy with precision. They don't fight every battle, they choose their wars wisely. They don't compete to be seen, they grow to be remembered. That strength, the ability to stay centered while the world tries to pull you off balance. So don't mistake silence for weakness or softness for surrender. It takes far more power to stay calm than to react in anger. The real measure of strength is not how hard you hit, but how much you can handle without losing your grace. Because in the end, a real woman's power doesn't come from what she can control, it comes from what she can endure. We live in a time where people wear confidence like armor, pretending not to feel pain, fear, or doubt. Everyone wants to look strong, unbothered, in control. But here's the truth, pretending to be invincible doesn't make you powerful. It makes you disconnected. Real power comes from being able to look at your pain and say, "Yes, I feel this, but I will rise anyway." Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the courage to be real in a world that rewards performance over honesty. When a woman allows herself to be vulnerable, she's not exposing weakness, she's revealing strength. Because it takes immense courage to stand without the mask. It takes maturity to say, "I don't have it all figured out." Society teaches women to hide their emotions, to always appear composed, to never show struggle. But all that does is create pressure, anxiety, and a false version of confidence. True strength doesn't come from denial, it comes from acceptance. Think about it. What connects us most as humans? It's not our perfection, it's our pain. We don't bond over our successes, we bond over our shared struggles. Vulnerability is the bridge that allows understanding, empathy, and growth to flow between people. When you pretend to be perfect, you build walls. When you're real, you build connections. A real woman understands this. She doesn't see her emotions as flaws, she sees them as signals. She knows that every feeling, even fear and sadness, carries a message. Vulnerability helps her stay self-aware. It keeps her grounded, humble, and human. It reminds her that she doesn't need to be superhuman to be strong. She only needs to be sincere. There's a quiet power in saying, "I'm struggling," because that's when healing begins. Too many women try to be everything: strong, supportive, successful all at once. They carry the weight of others but forget to rest themselves. They confuse endurance with strength, but real strength includes the ability to pause and ask for help when needed. It's not about breaking down, it's about being brave enough to admit when you're tired. Vulnerability also unlocks creativity and growth. When you stop fearing failure or judgment, you begin to take risks. You start to explore who you could be instead of who you're expected to be. That's how progress happens, through openness. The best leaders, artists, and thinkers are those who dared to be misunderstood, who showed their raw, imperfect selves to the world. They didn't hide behind an image, they led with truth. But make no mistake, being vulnerable doesn't mean being naive. It's not about exposing yourself to everyone. It's about being authentic with yourself first. It's about being emotionally honest, not emotionally reckless. A real woman learns to protect her energy while keeping her heart open. That balance, strength with softness, courage with compassion, is what makes her powerful beyond measure. And the moment you accept vulnerability as strength, fear starts losing its grip. You no longer live for approval or validation because you no longer fear being seen as imperfect. You embrace your humanity fully, your flaws, your failures, your emotions, and that's where real confidence is born. It's not the kind that needs applause, it's the kind that radiates quietly from within. So don't hide your heart in the name of strength. The world doesn't need more perfect women, it needs more honest ones. Because vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength, it's the foundation of it. And remember this, the woman who has the courage to feel deeply can never be broken, she only becomes more real. One of the greatest mistakes many people make, especially women, is trying to build relationships before they've built themselves. They rush into love, into care, into giving, without first asking, do I have enough inside me to give? The truth is, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot give what you don't have. A real woman understands this, that her first duty is not to please others, but to know and strengthen herself. Because only when you are whole can you truly love, lead, and nurture without losing yourself in the process. Many women are raised to believe that their value lies in how well they serve others, how good a daughter, wife, or mother they are. Society often praises sacrifice, but forgets to honor self-development. So what happens? Women grow up thinking that loving someone means forgetting themselves, that supporting others means silencing their own needs. But here's the truth. Sacrifice without self-awareness is not love, it's self-erasure. Building yourself first means building your emotional, mental, and financial independence. It means knowing your worth before anyone else defines it for you. It's not about being selfish, it's about being self-sufficient. Because when you depend on someone else for happiness, for validation, for stability, you give away your power. You make your peace conditional, and anything that can be taken from you was never truly yours. Think of it like building a house. If the foundation is weak, it doesn't matter how beautiful the walls are, one storm and it all collapses. Relationships work the same way. If you don't have a strong sense of self-clarity about your values, your boundaries, your goals, then every disagreement, every disappointment becomes a threat to your identity. You start confusing love with dependency and approval with self-worth. A real woman knows that before she can commit to another person, she must first commit to her own growth. She learns to enjoy her own company. She finds purpose in her own dreams. She becomes comfortable with solitude, not as loneliness, but as a space for clarity. Because the more you know yourself, the less likely you are to accept things that don't serve you. When you build your inner strength, you stop chasing relationships that drain you and start attracting those that respect you. And this is not just emotional, it's practical. Financial independence, for instance, gives you choices. It allows you to walk away from situations that compromise your dignity. Emotional maturity gives you stability. It helps you handle love with wisdom instead of fear. Mental strength gives you clarity. You stop confusing comfort with connection, attention with affection, and control with care. The irony is that when you build yourself first, you become more capable of building better relationships. You stop needing people and start choosing them. You give out of fullness, not lack. Love becomes an act of abundance, not desperation. That's when connection becomes healthy, because it's built on mutual respect, not dependency. There's a quiet elegance in a woman who doesn't chase validation because she already validates herself. Her presence says, I know who I am, I don't need you to complete me, but I'll walk beside you if you can meet me as an equal. That's real strength. That's real femininity, grounded, not fragile, giving, but not self-neglecting. So before you try to be someone's everything, make sure you've become your own something. Build your mind before you build your image. Build your peace before you build your partnerships. Because the most powerful version of love doesn't come from two halves trying to become whole. It comes from two whole individuals walking side by side, not out of need, but out of choice. And remember this, when you build yourself first, love doesn't complete you, it complements you. One of the biggest traps in life, especially for women, is comparison. The constant need to measure yourself against others, to prove that you belong, to show that you're as good, as talented, as beautiful, as successful. But a real woman doesn't compete, she creates. She doesn't chase the spotlight, she builds her own stage. Because the moment you start competing with others, you lose connection with yourself. You stop asking, what's my purpose? And start asking, how do I keep up? And that question alone kills creativity, peace, and authenticity. Competition is a game designed by insecurity. When you compete, you're operating from fear of being left behind, fear of being unseen, fear of not being enough. But when you create, you operate from vision, from clarity and confidence. You start focusing on growth instead of validation. A real woman doesn't spend her energy trying to outshine others. She invests it in shining brighter within herself. She knows that no one can replicate her essence, her story, her journey. And that uniqueness is her power. Look at nature. The sun never competes with the moon. Both shine in their own time. The flower doesn't compare its bloom to the one beside it. It simply opens when it's ready. Yet humans, especially in this age of social media, are taught to compete in every way: looks, lifestyle, success, even happiness. But all comparison does is exhaust the soul. It distracts you from your lane and drains your purpose. You start living reactively, chasing what others have instead of cultivating what's truly yours. When you focus on creating, you stop needing permission. You stop waiting for opportunities and start building them. A real woman understands that there's no traffic in her lane because she's not here to copy. She's here to contribute. She doesn't need to be better than others, she needs to be better than who she was yesterday. That's real progress, because when you grow internally, the world eventually adjusts to your evolution. But creating your own space also means learning to be patient. Every creator goes through moments of doubt and obscurity. Sometimes your work, your effort, your voice won't be seen immediately, and that's okay, because real growth takes time. When you plant a seed, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You water it, nurture it, and trust the process. The same applies to your dreams, your purpose, your identity. You see, competition is about proving. Creation is about becoming. When you compete, your focus is outward, you look at others. When you create, your focus is inward, you look at yourself. And when you look inward long enough, you discover your authentic power. That's when your work, your presence, your energy begin to carry a depth that can't be replicated. A real woman is not threatened by the success of others because she knows that another woman's light doesn't dim her own. She celebrates others because she's secure in her own path. Insecurity breeds competition, but confidence breeds collaboration. And when women begin to create instead of compete, they lift each other instead of limiting each other. That's when true empowerment begins, not through rivalry, but through recognition. So if you ever find yourself comparing your journey to someone else's, remember this: you're not meant to walk their path, you're meant to walk yours. No one can do what you're here to do. No one can bring your exact energy, your insight, your story into this world. That's what makes you irreplaceable, and always keep this truth close. Real women don't chase competition, they build creation. Because while competitors fight for space, creators redefine it. Every woman, no matter how strong or intelligent, will experience pain. That's part of being alive, but what separates a real woman from the rest is what she does with that pain. Some allow it to harden them, others use it to transform themselves. Pain can become poison or power, it depends on how you process it. The truth is, you can't control what happens to you, but you can always control what you become because of it. When life hits, and it will, the first instinct is often to resist, to ask, why me? To feel betrayed by the world. But pain is not a punishment, it's a message. It's life's way of breaking your comfort zone and reminding you of your depth. When everything is going smoothly, we rarely grow. It's the heartbreaks, the failures, the rejections that shape our resilience and reveal our strength. You don't discover who you are in the easy moments you find yourself in the fire. A real woman doesn't deny her pain, she studies it. She sits with it long enough to understand its lesson. Maybe it's teaching her patience, maybe humility, maybe self-respect. Every painful experience carries information about who you are, what you value, and what you're meant to outgrow. But too many people rush through pain without learning from it. They want to heal fast, move on, pretend they're fine. And in doing so, they lose the opportunity to transform. Healing is not about forgetting, it's about understanding. There's a difference between being hurt and becoming bitter. Being hurt is temporary, it's the body and heart responding to something that broke them. But bitterness is when you hold onto that pain so tightly that it becomes part of your identity. You start to define yourself by what went wrong instead of what you learned, and that's dangerous because bitterness doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. A real woman understands that pain is a teacher, not a permanent residence. She doesn't let it make her cold. She uses it to sharpen her awareness, deepen her empathy, and expand her capacity to love. You can always tell when a woman has turned her pain into power. She moves differently. There's no anger in her eyes, just wisdom. No revenge in her tone, just purpose. She doesn't speak to hurt others. She speaks to heal herself and inspire those around her. And this process isn't instant. Growth takes time. There will be nights of silence, moments of loneliness, and times when the world won't understand what you're becoming. But every scar, every setback, is part of your evolution. You can't become strong without breaking a little. You can't gain clarity without losing something along the way. The goal is not to avoid pain, it's to rise from it wiser, calmer, and stronger than before. It's easy to let pain define you, to wear it as a badge of survival. But true strength is when you no longer need to tell your story from a place of suffering. It's when you can look back, smile, and say, that broke me, but it also built me. That's power, quiet, graceful, unshakable power. So, when life hurts you, don't let it make you bitter. Don't close your heart to protect yourself. Let it open you, refine you, strengthen you, because pain is not the end, it's the beginning of awareness. And every time you rise after being broken, you're not the same person anymore. You're wiser, stronger, and more real. Always remember this. Pain will visit everyone, but only the wise turn it into purpose. In today's world, independence is often celebrated as a slogan, but very few truly understand what it means. People say they want freedom, but they forget freedom comes with responsibility. To be truly independent, a woman must be both financially capable and emotionally intelligent. Because money gives you choices, but emotional intelligence helps you use those choices wisely. One without the other is imbalance. Both together form real empowerment. Financial independence is not about greed or dominance. It's about dignity. It's about knowing that you can stand on your own feet if you need to. It's about never being trapped in a situation, whether personal or professional, because you lack the means to walk away. When you earn your own way, even if it's modest, you build self-respect. You stop seeking permission to dream. You stop tolerating what disrespects you. That's the silent strength of financial freedom. It's not loud, but it changes how you carry yourself, how you decide, and how you are treated. But let's be clear, money alone is not the solution. There are plenty of people who are financially independent but emotionally chaotic. They earn well but think poorly. They make choices driven by insecurity rather than clarity. This is where emotional intelligence matters. It's the ability to manage your emotions, understand others, and make decisions rooted in wisdom rather than impulse. When a woman develops both her mind and her bank account, she becomes unshakable. Because she's no longer reacting to life, she's designing it. A real woman learns how to balance logic with empathy. She knows when to lead with the heart and when to protect it with reason. Emotional intelligence doesn't mean you suppress feelings, it means you master them. You don't let anger dictate your actions, fear dictate your direction, or love blind your judgment. You respond instead of react. You communicate instead of explode. That's not softness, that's strength with grace. And when you combine that inner balance with financial stability, something remarkable happens. You move through life with quiet confidence. You stop trying to prove your worth because you live it. You stop chasing relationships out of need. You enter them out of choice. You start attracting people and opportunities that match your energy rather than drain it. You stop settling for less because you know you are capable of more. The world often teaches women to choose, be kind or be powerful, be nurturing or be ambitious. But the truth is, a real woman can be both. You can be gentle yet firm, emotional yet rational, generous yet independent. These qualities don't contradict each other, they complete each other. When you master your emotions and handle your finances, you stop existing in survival mode. You start thriving with direction. And this isn't just about wealth. It's about wisdom. You might not have everything you want, but when you're financially responsible and emotionally aware, you live with peace. You stop comparing, competing, and complaining. You start creating because you're no longer controlled by fear of loss, fear of loneliness, fear of judgment. You've built yourself strong enough to stand alone if needed, and wise enough to walk with others by choice. So remember, independence is not a posture, it's a practice. It's not achieved once, it's maintained daily through discipline, self-awareness, and courage. Every decision you make, every boundary you set, every goal you pursue, that's you reinforcing your independence. And the beauty of it all is this: when a woman becomes both financially independent and emotionally intelligent, she doesn't just change her own life, she changes generations after her, because her strength becomes a standard. Always remember this: the goal is not just to survive on your own, but to stand on your own with wisdom, balance, and grace. There's a misconception in the world today that leadership means dominance, that to lead, you must control, demand, or intimidate. But that's not leadership. That's insecurity disguised as power. Real leadership is quiet, it's graceful, it's rooted not in ego, but in example. A real woman leads with grace, not arrogance, with influence, not authority. She doesn't need to prove her strength by being loud. She earns respect through her presence, her wisdom, and her ability to create harmony even in chaos. Leadership begins with self-mastery. You cannot guide others if you haven't first learned how to guide yourself. The most powerful women I've seen aren't those who command the room by raising their voice, they command it by raising the standard. They don't chase validation, they embody conviction. Their energy is calm but commanding because it's backed by clarity, not emotion. When a woman knows who she is and what she stands for, her leadership becomes natural, not forced, not rehearsed, just real. Grace in leadership means choosing empathy over ego. It's easy to lead with fear, to control through authority, to win through intimidation. But it takes far greater strength to lead with compassion, to listen, to understand, to inspire. People don't follow titles, they follow energy, they follow authenticity, they follow those who make them feel seen, not small. A real woman doesn't use her power to make others feel powerless. She uses it to awaken the power within them. That's how you build loyalty, respect, and trust, not through dominance, but through connection. And let's be honest, grace doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean staying silent or being passive. Grace is strength under control. It's the ability to stay composed when others lose balance. It's knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to push and when to pause. It's emotional discipline, the kind that says, I don't need to fight every battle to prove I can win. I know my worth and I choose my peace. That kind of leadership is rare, but it's powerful beyond measure. A real woman leads by inspiring, not imposing. She builds teams, families, and communities where people feel valued. She doesn't compete with others in the room, she elevates them. She knows that success is not about being above anyone, but about bringing others along with her. When she wins, she creates space for others to win too. That's leadership rooted in abundance, not scarcity. The world today needs more of this kind of leadership with empathy, intelligence, and heart. Because we've seen what happens when ego runs things, relationships collapse, organizations crumble, communities divide. But when grace takes the lead, growth follows. It may not be as loud, but it's lasting. Because when people feel respected and understood, they don't just work harder, they believe deeper. And there's another truth: leadership isn't limited to business or power positions. Every woman is a leader in some form. You lead your children, your peers, your environment, and most importantly, yourself. The way you carry yourself teaches others how to treat you. The way you handle failure teaches others how to rise. The way you balance firmness with kindness teaches others how to lead with humanity. So don't think you need to wear a title to lead. Your influence begins in how you live, how you speak, how you show up every day. Leadership with grace is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent in your values, your vision, and your voice. And remember this: anyone can hold power, but not everyone can handle it with grace. True leadership is not about control, it's about contribution. Because in the end, power impresses people for a moment, but grace inspires them for a lifetime. One of the most overlooked forms of strength in a real woman is emotional intelligence, the ability to understand, manage, and rise above emotions rather than being controlled by them. We live in a world that celebrates external power, physical strength, financial success, loud confidence. But the truth is, emotional power often outweighs them all. Because while anyone can appear strong on the outside, only a few can remain stable, compassionate, and composed when life tests their spirit. Emotional intelligence is not about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them. It's about recognizing when your anger is speaking louder than your logic, when your fear is disguising itself as caution, or when your pride is blocking your growth. A real woman doesn't run from her emotions, she studies them, she listens to the message behind them, she learns to ask, why am I feeling this way, rather than reacting blindly to every emotional wave. That self-awareness is power. It gives her control over her inner world, and that control changes everything. Because when you can't master your emotions, you become a puppet to circumstance. Every insult, every failure, every rejection can throw you off balance. But when you've trained your mind to stay calm, when you can pause, reflect, and respond rather than react, you stop being easily shaken. You develop a strength that doesn't shout, but it holds steady, the kind of strength that can't be taken away by anyone or anything. And let's not forget, emotional intelligence is also about empathy, the ability to feel what others feel without losing yourself in the process, the ability to understand without judgment, to connect without manipulation. It's what makes a woman not only respected but trusted. People follow those who make them feel understood. They open up to those who listen, not just hear, and in any sphere, whether in leadership, relationships, or daily life, empathy is what sustains influence. But here's the challenge: emotional maturity takes humility. It takes the courage to admit when you're wrong, the wisdom to apologize sincerely, and the patience to forgive. It means realizing that not every battle deserves your energy, and that not every opinion needs your defense. Real women don't waste time proving they're right. They focus on doing what's right. They understand that peace is far more valuable than pride. In many ways, emotional intelligence is a silent revolution within. It's a shift from reacting out of pain to responding with purpose. It's about transforming emotional energy into creative energy, using hurt to build wisdom, using disappointment to build discipline, and using empathy to build bridges where others would burn them. When a woman masters this inner balance, she becomes unstoppable, not because life stops challenging her, but because she stops being easily defeated. She learns to channel emotion into momentum. She becomes the calm in the storm, not cold, but clear. Not detached, but discerning. And I want you to think about this. The world often tells women to be strong, but it rarely teaches them how to be emotionally strong. To be strong doesn't mean to be hard. It means to be centered. It means you can feel deeply without being consumed. It means you can care deeply without losing your boundaries. It means you can love fully without losing yourself. Emotional intelligence is the quiet superpower of every real woman. It's not something the world will always notice immediately, but it's something it will always feel. Because when you carry peace within you, it shows. It affects how you speak, how you lead, how you love, and how you rise. And so, remember this: the most powerful woman is not the one who controls others, but the one who controls herself. Because when you can master your emotions, you don't just survive life, you shape it. At the core of being a real woman lies one fundamental truth: authenticity. The courage to be who you truly are in a world constantly trying to define who you should be. Society has designed countless molds for women: the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect leader, the perfect everything. But the irony is, the more you try to fit into these molds, the further you drift from yourself. Real strength begins when you stop performing and start being, when you stop chasing validation and start honoring your truth. Authenticity isn't about rebellion or standing apart for attention, it's about alignment. It's living in harmony with your values, your emotions, your purpose. It's having the bravery to say, "This is me," even when it's not popular, even when it's misunderstood. Too many people live under the pressure of other people's expectations, pretending to be something they're not. But pretending has an expiration date. You can only sustain it so long before it breaks you from the inside. A real woman doesn't live for approval, she lives with awareness. She knows that peace comes not from being liked, but from being real. There's something deeply powerful about someone who is genuine. You can sense it in their presence: calm, confident, unshaken, because authenticity doesn't need to convince, it just is. When you meet a woman who's true to herself, she's not competing. She's not comparing. She's not pretending to be better. She's simply centered. That's why she becomes magnetic. People are drawn to her not because she's perfect, but because she's real. But authenticity also takes discipline. It requires you to be honest with yourself, to face your insecurities, your mistakes, your contradictions, not with shame, but with understanding. The most authentic people aren't flawless, they're self-aware. They know where they fall short, but they also know where they stand strong. That honesty becomes their power because it keeps them grounded while they grow. Inauthenticity, on the other hand, is exhausting. When you live by others' definitions, your happiness becomes conditional. You're constantly adjusting yourself, your words, your dreams, even your values just to fit in. And in doing so, you lose your essence. You become a version of yourself designed for acceptance, not fulfillment. But here's the truth: the world doesn't need another imitation. It needs the originality of who you are. Every great woman who ever made a lasting impact did it by being unapologetically herself. Whether it was in her thinking, her art, her leadership, or her compassion, she stood firm in her authenticity. Being authentic doesn't mean you never change. It means you change consciously. You grow with awareness, not imitation. You evolve because you choose to, not because you're pressured to. That's real maturity, growth without losing your essence. And yes, Authenticity will sometimes make you stand alone. People might not always understand your choices, your silence, your boundaries. But remember, being misunderstood is better than being misrepresented. It's better to walk alone in truth than to be surrounded by people who love a version of you that doesn't exist. The most beautiful thing about authenticity is that it simplifies life. You stop playing roles. You stop pretending. You stop wasting energy on approval. You start focusing that energy on purpose, on creating, serving, loving, and living meaningfully. So, if there's one message I could leave with every woman, it's this: never dim your light just because it doesn't fit someone else's idea of brightness. The world doesn't need you to be perfect, it needs you to be real. Because when you are real, you give others permission to be real too. And that ripple of authenticity, that quiet revolution of truth, is how real women change the world. Be bold enough to be yourself. Because, in a world full of copies, authenticity is the rarest form of power.